Give you a little video at first. Here you go.
Today, in the important case known as Medina versus Planned Parenthood, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that states have the right to defund Planned Parenthood. In this case, the state of South Carolina took this action through their Medicaid program. Southern Baptists value life and affirm that taxpayer funds should never be directed toward abortion providers like Planned Parenthood. And that is exactly what the brief that we filed before the court said. In light of the Dobbs decision that overturned Roe versus Wade, which allowed states to once again set policy about abortion, we applaud this creative thinking about how to protect life and combat the horrors of Planned Parenthood. With the dysfunction in Washington, we need more states taking proactive steps, just like we've seen in South Carolina. We all know that abortion isn't healthcare, and we know that Planned Parenthood is not an organization that's interested in saving lives. Our tax dollars shouldn't fund such heinous activity. Today's ruling provides a roadmap for states to ensure that that no longer happens. Please visit erlc.com/SCOTUS for more information about this case.
So yeah, absolutely. It's a win, right? You take the wins when you can get them. You celebrate the wins when they're there. Thank goodness. Also, it's an example of what we like to call federalism, how every state should be allowed to do this now, because you have states like my home state of Rhode Island, which are mandating that tax dollars be used for abortion. Yet at this point, we weren't allowed to say, well, no, our tax dollars can't. So does this solve an overarching problem? Not really, because California, New York, Rhode Island, Illinois, they can all still mandate it. But at least now, states have the power to at least cut off Medicare funding to Planned Parenthood. So the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that states can block Medicaid funding to Planned Parenthood, marking a win for a Republican effort to defund the organization. This decision may limit patients' ability to contest funding decisions, especially in rural areas with fewer health care options. This is the center view from Ground News. Public health groups like American Cancer Society highlighted that lawsuits are crucial for Medicaid recipients to assert their rights. In South Carolina, Planned Parenthood receives $90,000 a year in Medicaid funding, which is a small part of the state's total Medicare budget. Doesn't matter if it's $1. Doesn't matter if it's $1. The fact that any of your money, the money that you pay in taxes, goes to support the murder of babies should not be happening. It should not be happening because, simply enough, you have a right to do that. You have a right to decide where your taxpayers go. Now, Amy Howe over at SCOTUS blog wrote that the vote was a 6-3 and an opinion written by Justice Neil Gorsuch. So Neil Gorsuch penned this decision. Held that a provision of the Medicaid Act requiring states to ensure that Medicaid patients can obtain care from, quote unquote, any qualified provider does not create the kind of clear and unambiguous right required under the Supreme Court case to allow private lawsuits alleging violations of the provision. The decision means that the lawsuit by Julie Edwards, who had been treated by Planned Parenthood and sought, quote, to shift all of her gynecological and reproductive health care there, cannot move forward. She therefore cannot challenge the state's decision to exclude Planned Parenthood from Medicare. You're right, Catholic Jedi, not one penny. As a Catholic, or even as, evangelicals and Protestants who are really good at supporting pro-life efforts, if you believe that, as it is correctly stated, life begins at conception, then the fact of the matter is this: not one penny should be spent of my state taxpayer dime to it. The argument's always been this: if Planned Parenthood is such a vital institution, and I don't like this argument, but it is an argument that does have standing in our current setup, then privately fund it. Why does it need public funds? If it's so vital, it should be able to raise money on its own. We know pregnancy centers and places like Preborn, which I give every month to a company called Preborn. They provide ultrasounds for women and all kinds of things. And there's crisis pregnancy centers, which the Catholic Church leads the way in supporting. They don't get a dime of government funding, right? They don't get a dime. So why should Planned Parenthood get a dime of government funding? Right? Preborn has to go out and seek private donations. Pregnancy crisis centers have to go out and seek donations and do fundraisers and do on all these things. So why wouldn't they? Why can't, if Planned Parenthood, and I'm sure they can, I'm sure George Soros can write a check and fund all of them. If that's the case, then that's that. I don't like it, don't get me wrong, but in the legal standing, it's better than having the state fund it. Now, some of you will think that that's an endorsement of Planned Parenthood. It's not on my part. I can see the difference, though. If it's privately funded, that's one more step to getting it shut down, right? That's one more step to getting it shut down. But the fact of the matter is, if you can get rid of it from this, if you can get rid of the state appendage, the state cash flow to it, that makes it weaker. And I think that's something that's absolutely vital. So according to this vote, per Matt, it was a 6-3 vote. So it looks like all the quote unquote conservatives voted on this one. And that includes the notorious ACB, who has had glowing articles written about her, about how she's now a centrist. I'm sure they won't like that after this one. That's the thing, Catholic Jedi. It's not our money, right? It's one more barrier. If we can get it off the appendage, if we can get it out of the fact that you and I are paying for it against our will, okay, well, we're not paying for it. Okay, we're not paying for it. You got to go find money yourself. Go out and make the case to the average person that you should be able to fund them to murder children. Now, of course, they'll say, "Oh, reproductive rights," and da, 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 da. Let them spend the money, time, and energy trying to fundraise. Because the opposite end, you and I, the Catholics, the evangelicals, the Christians, we support the pregnancy centers, preborn, all those other things. We put our money towards that. And right now, we're actually paying double. We're putting our money towards that, and we're also having our money sucked out to pay for Planned Parenthood. If we can at least cut off that appendage, this is a win. The war does still go on. You're correct. And Pro-Life Inc. is too busy celebrating Roe for 4 years later to do anything about it. Well, Pro-Life Inc., here's the dirty secret. In Bellator, I know, because you watch this show, so you're obviously a person of high quality intelligence and attractiveness. You know the fact that Pro-Life Inc. only cares about national issues. Pro-Life Inc. does not give a rip about state issues because they can't fundraise off of it. And there are some really good pro-life places out there, but they're all nationally focused. Now, there's state ones that you can support, and even that, there's the double-edged sword of, hey, you want to support a state pro-life agency. Their whole thing is they're also, and I have to just say this as bluntly as possible, they're also not interested in abortion being eliminated. They're also not interested in seeing it eliminated, because if abortion goes away tomorrow, what do? And this is the question you have to ask them. Hey, if abortion is gone tomorrow, what do you do? Lily Rose, what do you do tomorrow if abortion, if it gets, and by the way, the idea of Thanos snapping that a certain person used, somebody else, came up with that idea. So I'm going to take it back. If abortion was snapped out of existence, I won't use Thanos snap, but if abortion was snapped out of existence tomorrow, what would Leela Rose do? What would, what's her face? She's big here in Texas. She used to be the abortionist. Abby. What would Abby Johnson do? What would these people do? In my heart, I know they want abortion gone, but at the same time, what's their future without it? So it is what it is. So or to legal or not, abortion will always happen. Yeah, no, I'm not. Just like murder, we have laws against murder, and people murder Catholic Jedi. So you're 100% correct. Yeah, well, she's just following. Francis changed the teaching on that, and I'm sure I don't think Pope Leo the 14th is going to do it, but some pope down the line is going to change that back, because that's Francis's view, as we know, didn't really line up with most of Catholic tradition and history, so that'll get changed back there. But and I hate even saying this because it makes me sound like I'm a misogynist, which I am. So let's, and B, I don't support what the pro-life movement is doing. I think they do great work. I just know that they are incentivized to not eliminate it. And maybe I'm wrong. I hope I am, but I don't think I am. So the root problem is an abortion that era is predominant in the pro-life world. Contraceptive. Yeah. No, yes. There's a whole problem with abortion is the consequence of the sexual revolution, the pill, all these other kinds of things that go hand in hand with it, right? With sexual liberation. If you have sexual liberation and a hookup culture, abortion is always going to be on the table until society reins that in, which I don't know is, absent a seismic event, will ever really be able to root that back in or rein that, get that toothpaste back in the bottle. Abortion is going to always be on the table because of that. So that's a very good point. No, I'm not. I haven't even watched that, so I don't even know. I haven't watched the Jimmy Martin thing with Pete Buttigieg, La Buttigieg. So I have no problem on that. I love the Planned Parenthood, the Unplanned movie. I actually got I interviewed the directors back on the station. I interviewed the directors of it. I thought it was a great film. So I have that. You don't understand the Leela Rose, Abby Johnson hating. No. I don't hate them. I don't hate them at all. I think it's a good point you bring up. It may sound like my whole thing is they're not incentivized to really push for the end of abortion, because if there's no more abortion, what do? There's always that root cause. And like I said, maybe I'm wrong, but their identity is tied to being anti-abortion activists. So if there's no more abortion, what do? So that's my question. So I respect what they do. There's a lot of stuff that Leela Rose does that I'm kind of like, should we really be talking about that? The fact that she platformed that Naya girl, right? We talked about Naya River or whatever her name is, the former OF model, and she brought her on and all these other kinds of, it's like, is that really talking about getting rid of abortion and so forth? Anyway, hopefully that makes a little bit more sense, RG. If it sounds like I'm ragging on them, I'm just pointing out that they may not be as incentivized to getting rid of abortion as it sounds. Maybe I'm wrong. I hope I am. And I'm not trying to say it in a negative content. It's an observation, but that's all it is.